Hello, roller coaster gamers. Um, roller coaster gamers. I said that really fast, but welcome to my top 7 roller coasters at Carowinds. And the reason why this is not a top 10 because Carowinds has well over 7 coasters. Is because I've been here a couple times and there's some coasters that every time I go I just miss out on, mostly because the coasters I really like here I get re-rides on because I'd rather re-ride the ones I really like than get the because I haven't gotten. But I've tried. There's 2 major coasters here that I've really tried to get on but have failed. So we're gonna get into those two. I like the family coasters, obviously, like Woodstock Express, Carolina Gold Rush, or Ricochet coasters like that. I have obviously. I don't really know if I care about getting those or not. Might try to if I had if it was a really dead day and I've done everything I needed to do and I had no time. I had like all this time left. I would do that, but um, the 2 major coasters I have not yet to ride at this park are Hurler and Vortex. Now Hurler I've heard is decent. I haven't heard good things about it. I haven't heard bad things about it. People just think it's just a nice little wooden coaster. Now, people will probably say that if you miss Vortex, don't worry because people have not really liked Vortex. It's a stand-up coaster, and people say it's one of the worst stand-up coasters, and so I still want to try to get on it. I'm probably gonna go back to Carowinds on August, towards the end of August, and I'll try to get these 2 coasters if possible. So I just want to get that out of the way. That's why this is a top 7 instead of like a normal top 10. So we're gonna get into the number 7 coaster, which is Carolina Cyclone. I have ridden this twice. I rode it once both of my visit. I've been to this park about two times, and I rode this both times I was here, and both times I did not enjoy it. It's a really bad head knocker, especially the double corkscrews. They're really brutal. People say it's not that bad, but they just think it's boring. And the layout, there's really nothing special to this layout. It feels like a normal Aero custom looper, but both times, I mean, I get it that it's old and everything, but every time I ride it, I just don't enjoy it. I even rode it in the front row, and this is a coaster that if I go back to Carowinds, I probably will skip just because I've ridden it and I haven't really enjoyed it that much because the layout is kind of boring and it just bangs my head around and stuff. So it's one of my so that's why it's my least favorite coaster at Carowinds. Now people wouldn't mind this coaster, and a lot of people would not like me putting this Nighthawk, below Nighthawk, which is a lot of people's least favorite coaster at Carowinds. A lot of people hate Nighthawk. Um, um, I didn't think it was as bad as people said it was. It wasn't great, but it's mainly just uncomfortable. The way, like, especially going up the lift hill, because the time of day we rode it, the sun is just blaring down on your eyes, so you're having to cover your eyes and stuff going up the lift hill. And the parts where you're laying on your back are kind of uncomfortable. It wasn't as rough. It definitely wasn't smooth, but the worst parts were their double corkscrew. That was probably the roughest part of the ride. But I mean, I think Carolina Cyclone definitely has more headbanging than this thing. The best parts are the parts where you're in flying position. Those are pretty cool. I mean, it's just not the best ride. It looks cool how it's over the water and everything. It's just not that great of a ride. So, moving on from that to number 5, we have Flying Cobras. Now, this is the only Become a Boomerang I've ridden, and it's fun. It has the better restraints than some of the other ones, so people consider this one of the better boomerangs because it's comfortable. And this certainly isn't. It's a pretty good ride. It's not in my top coasters or anything. It's definitely not one of the best coasters I've ridden, but it's still fun, and I like the spike going up. You kind of get if you're in the back row, you kind of feel like you're way up there, and yeah, it's all right. It's not the smoothest ride, but it's not bad. So moving on from this to our number four spot is a pretty big jump from this to the next one because the top four here are really great. So number four is I had a hard time deciding between this and number third and number three, but for number four I put Intimidator. There's nothing wrong with this ride. It's really smooth, gives great floater airtime. I really like the seating, how you have like the inner seats and the outside seats separate. Unlike a normal B&M has just a normal four across, but the seats are like in a weird position. So if you're on one of those outer seats, you really feel open and exposed and everything, and it feels like you're just like flying through the layout. My main problem with this coaster is that it feels like it loses some of its speed because of those trims, and it just between some of the hyper coasters I've ridden, it feels like it loses some of the momentum because of the trims. So it's a good ride, but because of the trims, I put it at number four. So at number three, we have our bronze coaster here. Now, a lot of people would probably put this at number two, but for number three is Afterburn. And if you saw in my versus video between this and Raptor, this won the title as my favorite inverted coaster I've ridden. This is a great ride. It has a great pacing. It feels like you're flying through the whole layout. All the inversions are awesome. That zero G roll and the Batwing especially. I like how you go through the dive loop part, go through the tunnel, and then come up through the Immelman part of the Batwing. It's really cool. And I like how there's no mid-course brake run, so it's non-stop. And it's pretty smoother than some of the other inverted coasters I've ridden, like Batman the Ride. That Six Flags Over Georgia, that one just isn't the smoothest being an invert. But this one's good, got great whippiness, nice, solid inverted coaster. So, coming up in the silver spot, number two, is a bit of a controversial one. People would obviously probably put it in like the top four, but people might be surprised that I have Copperhead Strike as my second favorite coaster here. And going into it, I was looking forward to it and everything. I wasn't expecting it to be my number two coaster when I was getting on it, but man, did this ride surprise me. It gives some of the best hang time I've ever experienced on a coaster. Like almost every single inversion, well, except for that corkscrew. There's the corkscrew right after that first vertical loop, but that hang time on both loops, the inverted top hat, and especially the JoJo roll going out of the station. Man, you really hang. And sorry about that. And it gives some good airtime. Dare I say, it gives the best airtime at Carowinds because you have Intimidator. That's all floater airtime. This has some ejector moments, and there is one floater airtime hill. The floater airtime hill is on the second launch. There's like a cool moment of float of like weightlessness there, but there's some cool ejector moments, especially that hill after that first vertical loop. Man, you go flying, and there's one little sharp hill right before you go into the launch, and then one before the brake run. And I mean, the only critique I have with this coaster, besides that it's not very fast, the launches aren't that forceful, but the restraints do kind of go further down on you to closer to the end of the ride. So the airtime hills and all some of the elements in the second half, like as you go through the ride, start to become less exciting with the lap bars, but it's not that bad. It's not that noticeable to me. I've heard that it's like that with a lot of Mack rides coasters with their lap bars, But this is a pretty good ride. I thought it was much better than people say it was. But of course, number one, nothing can beat number one here. Obviously, it's Fury 325. What an amazing coaster. One of my favorites that I've ridden. Up there with Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point and Millennium Force ain't too far from the number one spot. I think my favorite coaster is Steel Vengeance, but this is a good like number 2 or 3 coaster that I've ridden. This is a great ride. It has an amazing first drop. Probably, I'm not sure, but it's definitely one of my favorite drops on a coaster. Best drop on a B&M I've been on. Yes, I do like it better than the drop on Valraven at Cedar Point. It's just a great drop. And the treble clef element is awesome. How you kind of go 90 degrees and you feel like you're floating, and then you dive under the bridge. The twists and turns with it are really good, and it's just super intense. The first time I rode it, I had a on-ride I had like a photo, on-ride photo, and my face looked absolutely. I looked like I was like totally out of it. I was facing the side, and my face was just completely like. It looked like I was like, like disfigured or something. It looks so crazy. It's so fast. It's so crazy. And that's why it's my favorite roller coaster at Carowinds. Not a lot of people. It's not a big surprise. I mean, a lot of people saw it coming, but that is going to do it for my top 7 coasters at Carowinds. And when I should be visiting here in about a month's time, and I want to try to get on some of the other coasters like Vortex, Hurler, and some of the other cool rides they have here. And let me know what is your favorite coaster at Carowinds. What are like in the comments. I don't know if you have to do a top 10, but at least give me a top 5. Um, and I respect anyone's opinion. If they totally disagree with this list, I'm totally okay with that. So, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time, Roller Coaster Gamers.